Hi everyone, welcome to An Hour with LawSikho. Today's session is, I can say, it's a very well anticipated session because many people have been asking me that can we please actually do a session on CLAT? So we have Harsh with us, Harsh Gagrani. I know Harsh for a long time now. He started legal age many years back when maybe starting a CLAT tutorial was not a very in thing. Now obviously CLAT business is very big, and Harsh is one of the leading people in the industry. And Legal Age enrolls thousands of people every year in multiple cities. And also, Harsh has a great track record as a trainer in the sense that many students from Legal Age get into CLAT in good colleges, right? So we will ask actually Harsh about the data. He can say it better. Uh, However, it's quite remarkable. Like it's remarkably more successful than others. And Harsh has literally been a very popular CLAT mentor and a CLAT related trainer. So we thought that we would call Harsh and ask him about how he goes about teaching and how CLAT is changing over the years and what you like, how to crack CLAT basically. So welcome, Harsh.
Thank you so much, Ramanoj. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it has been a while you have been working on in this area. If you can tell me, like, what kind of success you had so far.
Okay. So I graduated from National Law Institute University, Bhopal in 2011, and I started Legal Edge the next month itself. So it's been 7 years now. It's been over 7 years now, and obviously we had humble beginnings. In the first year, we had just 4 students, and the number obviously increased every year, and it has been increasing every year. Uh, Over the past 7 years, we've got a lot of good ranks. We've got AIR 1, we've got AIR 2, AIR 5, AIR 10. And pretty much every year, we are sending not less than 300 to 400 students to national universities and close to 40, 50 students to the top 3 NLUs. That has been the journey since the past 7 years. And we've also opened multiple centers outside Bhopal. Also, our head office is in Bhopal, and we've opened centers in Gwalior, in Jaipur, in Indore, in Allahabad, and in Kanpur. So
Great.
more centers are in pipeline, but we have 5 more centers as of now.
Interestingly, I was in I don't remember exactly where. I think I was in a national university to for some event, and and I was talking to a fifth year law student, and he said that there are always like a lot of people from Bhopal in every national law university. And I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like, I know why. I know why. I know the guy responsible for this, who's sending a lot of Bhopali students to various national universities. So
yeah, yeah.
it has
Thank you so much.
become a phenomenon. Like people who know about this, not everyone will notice probably, but your students are literally in every national university, 10-15% seats are filled by your students. So, I'm very curious that, there are much bigger CLAT training organizations than you perhaps. I don't know about the absolute numbers, but with presence in different cities, obviously, there's Career Launcher, IMS, and I don't know who else are the big players now. But, you know, how come with like so few centers you have been doing these numbers? And what is the secret of like if you probably enroll 1,500 students a year and you have 300 to 500 going into national universities? That's a fantastic success rate, I would say, having seen quite a few institutes when I was myself involved in CLAT training. So what's the success mantra behind this?
I think it has been a combination of a lot of factors, but I think the major factor behind this has been the team, that we have involved for training the students. See, naturally, it's a faculty's task of training the students, and if we get good faculties on board, and if we are able to hold them for a long time, they'll be able to deliver consistent results year on year. So it has largely been a team effort, firstly, and secondly, it has always been involvement of everyone in all the students preparation, like not just of mine. I cannot possibly train
No,
1,500, 2,000 students,
those
myself
are,
alone.
I'm saying that,
So,
a lot of organizations have teams also. They also do teamwork, and
uh,
they also have hardworking students. But what's the
uh,
real reason for this breakthrough success?
I think the difference has been, the idea of teamwork and the implementation of teamwork. See, the idea of teamwork is something which exists everywhere. Like everyone, it's a it's an age-old advice that teamwork wins and everything. But the implementation is where most of the others falter. I've seen a lot of our competitors faltering over the past 6, 7 years. And luckily, we've been growing year on year. We haven't had any year where we had less students in the last year, since the past 7 years. So, what in our industry, the attrition rate is very high, but we've been able to hold our good faculty since the past almost 4 years now. So, and we have trained all the faculties to be directly involved with the preparation of the students. They take a lot of classes every day. We have a lot of doubt clearing sessions. Now, doubt clearing session is something which all the coaching institutes say they post about it. But we have genuine doubt clearing sessions every day. All our faculties are full-time faculties. We don't believe in the concept of part-time faculties anymore. So just barring probably a couple of very good faculties, or team of close to 17, 18 faculties, completely full-time faculties.
Okay.
So this, in addition to fantastic material, we have invested a lot in preparing very good material. The number of booklets that Legal Edge gives. See, the quality is something which is very subjective in nature. But if we talk about the quantity also, the number of booklets that we give, it's almost double the number of booklets given by most of our competitors. So it has been a combination of a lot of factors, but yes, predominant, the primary one has been teamwork.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, so if somebody has to crack CLAT today, how has it changed? Like, I remember there was a time when I wrote the national law admission test that was there at that point of time for different, NLS, NUJs, and then CLAT was started, and there
Yeah.
have been a lot of changes. I think from that time, the way the papers are set and the way the even the level of competition that is
Yeah.
there. So, what is changing really in CLAT?
See, the biggest change obviously has been the most obvious one. That's the number of aspirants taking law entrance examinations. I think both of us, we took law entrance in 2006. You
Correct.
went to NUJS, I went to NLIU. So back then, the number of aspirants were close to 7, 8,000. There is no official data as such, but in 2008, the number was 10,000. And the number has it's almost 5 times now. In 2018, for LLB, there are 55,000 aspirants. And the number of good seats have not increased. So a lot of new national institutes have come up, but as of now, they are not able to deliver the same quality education which the top 5 to 7 national universities have been giving. So the number of good seats have not increased. The number of aspirants has increased.
Sorry, but I was just saying that probably it's not so much about the difference in quality of education, but difference in recruitment opportunities, which is standing out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the competition has increased manifold now. And what has happened is that it has now slowly becoming more of a droppers market rather than just a freshers market. Like, it's law is not a profession, or CLAT is not an examination anymore, which you can crack merely by studying, say, for 15 odd days and just one book, just skimming through a lot of topics, and it's very difficult to clear CLAT in this way now. So it is becoming more of a droppers market now. You need to slog and you need to study for more than 5, 6 hours every day, and you need to study like this for at least a year, uh, you know, to be to have a good chance at cracking CLAT. So the competition has increased manifold. The difficulty level of the paper hasn't really increased. It has just been ups and downs. 2015 was a very difficult paper, but 2016's CLAT was the easiest paper till date. So it has seen a lot of ups and downs in terms of the quality of paper and the difficulty level, but the competition has increased manifold.
Okay.
That's what the major difference has been. Yeah.
Basically the exam has not become any much more difficult, but the experience is that you have to score more and more marks to get a decent seat.
Get a decent seat. Exactly.
Okay. So, what is the difference you are seeing in you mentioned that you are seeing more people who are dropped out of, not joining a college, but actually preparing for CLAT. with full dedication. Those people are cracking it more. But
Hmm.
what are the foundational skills or knowledge that really helps somebody like to crack CLAT? Like what sort of people are kind of better placed? Many years back I used to say if you have a good logical mind, that you're able to do logical reasoning questions fast, and if you have a good GK and decent English, those are like foundational blocks. So what is it like today to prepare for CLAT? What are the things that really helps if you
I think
bring them?
slowly, yeah, I think slowly it is becoming a lot more language-oriented examination now. And by language, I strictly mean English language, because it's conducted only in English and not in any other medium. And as in, since a lot of students from the metro cities, the urban areas, they're now participating even more in CLAT, and they obviously have an upper hand, in CLAT, because language is not just restricted to 40 marks of English. It's even useful in the critical reasoning part of logical reasoning, which is another section. It's even useful in the legal reasoning part of legal aptitude, which is another section. So it has become a lot more language oriented than it was a few years ago. Obviously, a good background of mathematics and a logical bent of mind really helps. But first and foremost, you need to have a good command over English. So either you need to have it beforehand, or you need to develop it as soon as possible once you start preparing for CLAT.
Right. So
Yeah.
one major problem with CLAT has been that year after year they have wrong sort of question papers, or there are some wrong questions, like a lot of wrong questions, and where in an exam 1 or 2 marks can be the difference between NLS Bangalore and maybe Nual's Kochi, where
Yeah.
you 10 questions which are wrong in the paper. So how do you prepare your students for this kind of a disaster? Because this is probably more likely to happen than not. So how do you prepare your students?
Exactly. See, what we have been doing is we hold a lot of sessions on this, like sessions specifically on disaster management. Not exactly a lot of sessions, but yes, we do have a session on this. It's really required now. So how to react in case of any mishappening. In case your mouse, it's a very small point, but in case if your mouse is not working, if your screen goes blank, sorry, and in case if you see a wrong question, you know that the correct answer of this question is not given in any of the options. So do you need to mark that question or not? Which kind of option you need to mark? How do you need to react? And then we obviously have a lot of mocks. And even during our mocks, see, it's a combination of hardware and software, and these things, they can malfunction anytime. So even during our mocks, sometimes, even though not deliberately, but these things do happen even while we conduct our mocks. So it's like a mock drill of how the actual CLAT will happen. See what happened in this year's CLAT. I'm sure you all of you must have heard of this. What happened in this year's CLAT was unparalleled. Uh, I hope it's not repeated again. So that was on a different level altogether. But generally speaking, yes, we train the students for any kind of mishappenings also by just telling them how exactly to react on this.
Right.
And by the way, the bottom line, how exactly to react, the answer is just call the invigilator. But just call the invigilator as soon as possible. Do
Sure.
not try to sort of repair the hardware yourself, or do not try to do anything. The moment you see anything going haywire, just raise your hand and call the invigilator.
Sure. You know, I'm not sure if that always works, because when I was writing my National Law School Bangalore exam, I got a question paper which was completely mixed up. So that time there was no digital screw ups, but I got a question paper which was not like it was obviously stapled and all of that, but the whole paper was jumbled up. So after page
Hmm.
5, there was like page 11. Like there's no
Yeah.
continuity. We had to literally do a puzzle solving to find the answer, and I pointed it out to the invigilator. But it took me good. They took 15 minutes to give me a question paper.
Hmm.
So I mean, I'm not sure that always helps. I mean,
No, that doesn't always help. In fact, this year also a lot of students, because close to 10 to 15,000 students were genuinely affected by this year's CLAT,
yeah,
as in they were not able to take the CLAT properly, and a lot of them, they went to the invigilator. The invigilator were, sadly, they were equally clueless as the students. So, but again, let's hope that what happened this year is merely an exception and it's not repeated again.
and how is that going to happen? Because even in other years, they at least have wrong questions in the paper, right? Like
Yeah.
erroneous questions. They haven't even held by the courts that these. certain questions were wrong. So how is it
Yeah.
going to be different next year?
Hopefully they'll see. I think what they had hired a different company to conduct CLAT this year. For obvious reasons, we won't name them, but they had hired a different company this year as compared to the company which has been conducting CLATs in the past few years. Now, ever since CLAT went online, for the first few years there were technical glitches, but they were very few and not more than possibly 0.1%. Like I just had max one student who had to face some kind of a small or big technical glitch every year out of close to 1000. So, but this year it has been with every second or every third student. So I think even if they are able to give the tender back to the old company and they just take care of the basics, they just train the invigilators properly, and they just make sure that all the PCs are functioning properly. They don't make any last moment changes. This year, the platform was changed at the last moment, just a couple of weeks before the actual CLAT. So, all the coaching institutes, they had to hurry up and they had to change their platform themselves and then conduct a couple of mocks with the changed platform. So
Right.
let's hope that, we can merely hope that this isn't repeated next year. By the way, there's also I'm sure you must have heard of it, that there's also a PIL pending in the Supreme Court on a
Filed by.
permanent CLAT body.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, on a permanent CLAT body. So in case a permanent CLAT body is formed, that should be a solution to most of these problems.
See, this
One of the
PIL
problems.
was filed. I remember I was part of the team which drafted this PIL, and that time I was in college. So you can
Okay.
imagine how long back this started. And so I
Uh,
don't know if it has gone on for the last 7, 8 years. How many more years it can go on? I am not sure. So
yeah. Yeah. I hope it's uh, उसका solution जल्दी आए. But luckily, the last hearing of the PIL was just a couple of days after this year's CLAT.
yes,
So the court was told of what happened in this year's CLAT, and the court was very angry with it.
right.
But again, there's no final judgment as of now. Let's hope that we get some finality before next year's CLAT.
Yeah, let's hope
Yeah.
so. So
Ramanj, can you please just give me a second? Just give me a second, please.
yeah, yeah, sure. All right. So it's really anybody who takes the CLAT is now more worried, not so much worried about their preparation, but more worried about the preparation by the university which will organize CLAT. So usually I was just saying that usually it is your preparation in an exam that matters, but these days students are have to be more worried about how the university is preparing for the exam, right?
Exactly, exactly. The role of luck has increased manifold now. Like earlier, it was almost 90-95% hard work and just 5% luck. But if you take into consideration this year's CLAT, it's almost 50% preparation and 50% luck. You can prepare all you want, and you don't know what would happen on the final day.
Right. So tell me about like which university is expected to hold the next CLAT
Next year's CLAT would be held by NLU Odisha
in Odisha.
and NLU Odisha, yes. And Odisha, luckily, they have some experience of conducting examinations, because I remember from 2008, I might be wrong, but from 2008 to 2011, I guess,
Yes, yes.
Odisha used to have their own entrance.
Own entrance.
Yeah, it wasn't online, but at least they have some kind of a basic experience of preparing questions.
Yeah,
Then I
even
think 2000,
yeah, even their papers I remember used to be pretty decent papers. Not too bad papers. Like pretty decent papers were there from what I remember about NLU.
huh,
But that time there was Professor Faizan Mustafa who was running it.
I remember, yes.
Not sure that
Yes.
there's no continuity between the administration of those days and now anymore. So I don't think those
Yeah,
people.
mostly most of the team would have changed now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it won't. Yeah, now since you have told this, I understand it won't create a huge difference, because the team that prepared the paper in 2008, 9, 10
Yeah.
would have changed by now. But again, let's hope for the best.
Absolutely. So, what is the expectation in terms of the kind of papers we are seeing? Like, we expect the papers to remain more or less the same. The pattern has stayed stable over the years, isn't it?
The broad pattern is stable over the years. Like the composition of the 5 subjects. That's 50 marks for GK and legal aptitude, and 40 marks for logical reasoning and English, and then 20 for mathematics. So that has changed, and that has remained stable. but the paper has the difficulty level and the kind of questions which are asked. It has varied a lot. So I'll just briefly orient everyone on this. Like CLAT started in 2008. So from 8 to 10, 2008, it was conducted by Bangalore, and then Nalsar, and then NLIU. So 8 to 10, the pattern changed a lot because it was a very new paper. 2011, when it was conducted by NUJS, the pattern was made stable for the first time, and 12, the pattern changed again a bit, and that has been stable since then. The pattern that I just told you. But the kind of questions like 2015, which I just said a few minutes ago, 15 was the most difficult paper till date. Most of the questions of logical reasoning in English, they were picked up straight away from the CAT papers. So they were picked up from the CAT 2002, CAT 2007 and 8 papers. And CAT is obviously, since it's a PG level entrance examination. So the general difficulty level of CAT is much more than the general difficulty level of CLAT. So it was the most difficult paper till date, and the cutoff, they fell down drastically. But due to some reason, the next year itself, they prepared the easiest paper till date. And the cutoff went up by not, from what I remember, by not less than 20, 25, 30 marks. 17 and 18, the papers have been, relatively of a moderate difficulty level. But before that, again, there were a lot of variations. 14, it was easy. 15, difficult. 13, it was fairly standard. And when we look at the sections, so like let's start with, say, legal aptitude. So legal aptitude, it basically comprises of two components. That's legal reasoning and legal knowledge. So 2014, they were pretty much all the questions were legal reasoning. 2015, there were more legal knowledge questions. 2016, again, more legal reasoning questions. So the basic structure has remained the same, but the paper has so far been very unpredictable. So, ideally, while preparing for CLAT, you should prepare for everything. You should definitely assign difficulty levels to this. Some difficulty level as in the importance level, sorry. So some sections, some topics should be done with more importance. They should be done and revised again and re-revised. But some topics should be merely touched upon. But all the topics have to be touched upon. You can't really ignore anything. CLAT doesn't have a pattern of itself. Like, it's not that old a paper that you can say that it has a stable pattern. This will come, this will not come. So CAT ke saath abhi bhi aisa nahi hua hai. And probably it's not going to happen till we see a permanent CLAT committee. Because obviously every year it's conducted by a different by a different body. So different set of people, they come and they conduct CLAT. So that is why it has been very inconsistent.
Right. Yeah. So, if somebody decides to go for CLAT, how much preparation do they need to reasonably crack CLAT with a good rank? Let's say top 300, top 500 rank. What is it like? Typically, what kind of preparation would you say is required?
I think it would firstly, it would depend on what your existing level is. So any student which is thinking of preparing for CLAT, firstly, should take a couple of mock tests. Ideally, there should have been diagnostic tests for these students. But even if they take a couple of mock tests, and they can gauge what their current level is. So if they're fairly comfortable with English and mathematics, they might not need to prepare a lot. Even if they prepare for 2 to 3 hours every day over the course of a year, that should be more than enough. But if he or she is not comfortable with English, as I said, English is the most important section. So if he's not comfortable with English, he needs to prepare a lot for English for the first few months. They need to read a lot. They need to read a lot of editorials, possibly a couple of good novels, or if it's very weak, possibly half a dozen good novels over the first few months. And make sure that 50% of your preparation time goes towards preparation for English. This specifically only to the students who are very weak with language. And the second most important section is mathematics. Now, even though it's of 20 marks, so it might seem that it's the least important section, but since it's ignored by most of the people, so that is where the opportunity lies of scoring really well. And maths also has a direct impact on logical reasoning. So when you're preparing for maths, automatically you're subconsciously preparing for logical reasoning also. So these two sections need to be devoted the most number of time, the most number of hours every day. So that's how, your preparation should be structured.
Okay.
Yeah. And the remaining 2-3 sections, I think, legal reasoning and current affairs, even if you don't give them a lot of time, like it's 50%. It should be like I'll assign numbers to this. So it should be 50% English and mathematics and 50% all the other sections. So current affairs, even if you study for say half an hour every day from any good source, and legal reasoning, even if you study for a couple of hours every week, that's much more than enough. And logical reasoning, as I said, when you're preparing for mathematics, you're also subconsciously preparing for logical reasoning. So you won't really need to devote a huge number of hours for mastering logical reasoning. So this is how your preparation should be structured. But if you have a very strong background in English, if you already are pretty good with English, and if you when you took the mocks you got good scores in English, then possibly you can devote all this time to the remaining sections itself. But I think that's applicable only to the 5% of the crowd. To the remaining 95%, they need to devote a lot of time studying English.
Studying English. Right.
Yeah, that's how your preparation should be structured.
So within English also, what are the specific things that they really need to study?
See, the kind of preparation that I'm asking for, that would be a lot of reading, and then a lot of vocabulary based, in fact, a lot of reading with a specific purpose in mind. That is, getting a lot of words, or a lot of new words for vocabulary, number one, and trying to understand what the author is trying to say. I've seen, it seems pretty obvious, but I've seen a lot of students thinking of thinking that they're reading, but what they are doing is they just get a fair idea of the whole story. That's it. Even if they don't understand every line or every paragraph. So if your English is weak, you need to understand every line and every paragraph. That's what your focus should be. And try to get a lot of new words for vocabulary. We might think that vocabulary is endless and the questions can come from anywhere, but they're essentially just 1,000 or 2,000 odd words which get repeated in pretty much all the entrance examinations. Correct. And these are the words which come repeatedly in various novels or various editorials. So if you prepare for English in this way, that'll be very beneficial, and then move on to objective English. So then solve a lot of questions of reading comprehension, and then grammar-based questions and parajumbles, and then synonym, antonym, misspelled words, idioms and phrases, foreign words. So these are the specific topics. But this should be level 2. Students, obviously, they always want to jump directly to the questions without really understanding nuances of English. So it should be level 1 should be a lot of reading, and then level 2 is a lot of question solving. But question solving should come after a couple of months. For the first few months, it should be a lot of reading.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So where do you see, what about critical, reasoning and this logical reasoning part? How do people prepare for that? I think that confuses a lot of people about the preparation.
Yeah. See, logical reasoning, as I said, logical reasoning is of 40 marks in CLAT. And logical is of broadly 2 parts. One is analytical reasoning, second is critical reasoning. Now, analytical reasoning is closer to mathematics, critical reasoning is closer to English. In fact, in a few entrance examinations, critical reasoning is a part of English itself. They don't have a separate section by the name critical reasoning. So for mastering critical reasoning, you need to have a strong command over English. And the same applies to analytical reasoning. You need to have strong command over mathematics. But if you take logical reasoning in isolation, if parallelly you are preparing well for maths and English, and then even if you devote say half an hour every day to logical reasoning, or just say 3 hours a week to logical reasoning practice, that should be more than enough. And any good book in the market, because logical reasoning is a section which comes in most of the entrance examination. So there are a lot of books available in the market by good publishers. So any good book in the market you can purchase and solve a lot of questions from that. But again, if you solve these questions in isolation without preparing for maths or English, you won't be, you won't really improve in logic. So you need to prepare parallelly for these, parallelly for English and maths to really improve in logical reasoning. Right. That should be the approach for logic. Yes.
Got it. What is your experience with respect to people who are just, finishing their 12th, or, then they have a little bit of time, the crash courses? There are a lot of people who do crash courses, and crash courses are very successful for, the coaching centers also. But what we usually know is that the number of people who from crash courses actually manage to get into a good college are quite few. So what is your advice to people who don't have time? They have to take a crash course. What is your advice to them?
See, crash course, I think most of the students, and that's what we even orient here at Legal Edge, we're pretty upfront with the fact that crash course should be the last preferred option. Yes, once a student is done with his class 12th, and if he is not yet sure what to do, in this case, even if he's not sure regarding law and he just wants to, just give it a shot. Number one, in that case, crash course is a good option. Number two, if he has a strong background in English and maths, and strong would not mean very strong, even if he has always been, say, in the top three or top five, in his class in English and mathematics, and he has taken maths in class 11, 12, though it's directly maths of 11th and 12th doesn't come in CLAT, but if he has taken maths in 11, 12, so this means he is fairly familiar with mathematics. So, for these students also, crash course would be a good option, because for these students, they just need to build up over the next 1.5 months. That's the duration of crash course. For the other students who are very weak in English, firstly, they'll have to spend a lot of time studying English. And by that time, the CLAT would have arrived. So specifically for these two, and the third, they just give it a shot. अगर इस बार हो गया तो बहुत अच्छी बात है, नहीं हुआ तो we'll take a drop anyway. So for these three category of students, crash course is very good. But if a student doesn't really fall in any of these three categories, then he really needs to rethink what should be done. Should I directly go for a drop, or should I go for law or not, or should I just settle for a mediocre college? So he'll have to go for any of those options.
Right. So, what are the, if one doesn't really get through a good college in CLAT, what are the alternatives for one? Like, should I drop and try again next year, or like what's the way?
See, if students are not able to crack a good national school, and if they're able to get through a good private college, now there are a few good private colleges who are doing very well. In fact, they're doing at par with or even better than a few national universities. Symbiosis Noida, Symbiosis Pune, the Nirma University Ahmedabad, UPS Dehradun, obviously Jindal Global Law School, which is a very expensive law school. But if you're able to afford it, it's a fantastic college. So a few private colleges are doing fairly well. So if you can get through those, very good. But if you're not able to get through those, if you're not able to crack any of these private colleges also, we would strongly suggest taking a drop. Because doing law from a very mediocre college, which doesn't really have a very good standing, which hasn't really seen any placements till now, it's just a 3-4-year-old college, and you got to know about this college because you got a message from them, or you got a random brochure from them, or you just got a call from them. So it's not a good idea, joining such a college. These things can't be undone. These mistakes can't be undone. Once you join a college, and in case if you think of leaving it midway, you would have wasted half of the year and a lot of money. Right. So if you get a good college, so my advice to the freshers would be, if you get a good college, if you get one of the top 7 national universities, or if you get a good private college, you can possibly go to those. Unless if you had a clear aim of cracking the #1 law school in the country. We get at least half a dozen students every year who get through 5th or 6th ranked national university, and still they go for a drop because they wanted just to go to Bangalore or Hyderabad. And most of them, they are able to crack it next year also. They are able to crack Bangalore and Hyderabad. But for the other students, I would suggest, if you're not able to crack these colleges, do not settle for an average college. Should take a drop.
Right. Yeah. In my experience, I just want to add something. What you're saying is pretty much right. There's something I want to add though. Beyond the first 4, 5, 6 national universities, after that, even if you get to a national university or a private college, it doesn't perhaps make all that difference. And what we are seeing, most of our work is at the level where people are graduating and looking for jobs. And the experience is that even from national law universities, people are struggling to get jobs, because in the end of the day, you're very dependent on what you learn yourself in college, and what internships you do to get a placement. And also, if you are lucky, in very few colleges, there is good campus placement. Very few colleges, limited to top 5 or 6, even probably 5 more likely. And rest of it, you are very much dependent on getting a good internship and performing in the internship and getting a job. What I say to people is that if you're able to stay in a city where there's a lot of law firms, a lot of law practice, if you're able to stay there and you're able to actually go and work there on a regular basis, along with your college, which happens in Mumbai, which happens in Delhi, a lot of
Mm,
colleges
mm.
which allow you to continue doing internships throughout the year. Those are actually even better because those sometimes in those colleges you pay very much less fees and you're able to do internships throughout the year. That guarantees that you will get a very good job at the end of those years. Because if you have interned with law firms and if you're available to intern throughout the year, most even good law firms take you in. So that's something to keep.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, you're perfectly right, Ramaraj. In fact, there have been a few average colleges, but because of their locational advantages, even we suggest going to these colleges. They are not really bad colleges, but these are the colleges which won't, by themselves they would guarantee you placements. But their location is such; they are very close to very good law firms in Mumbai or in Delhi. So it's easier for the students to parallelly intern in these law firms along with studying in the colleges. So
Correct.
yes, in case of these colleges, students can definitely go to these colleges.
And I know that there's a craze for working in big law firms and all of that. But we have come to realize, I'm sure you also know by now that there are people practicing in district courts, our batchmates, and
Yeah.
earning more than the law firm guys. Maybe these people are earning 2-3 lakhs a month, 5 lakhs a
Mm.
month, and it's basically you do a one bail matter, it is 50,000, 60,000 rupees in
Mm.
some small district you may not have heard of. And this is a reality. It's like lawyers have, like, there are too many career opportunities. You should not think that if you don't get into a national law university, it doesn't work. Like, there are a number of things you can do provided you are hardworking and open to ideas. I think law students should keep that in mind. Like, law aspirants should keep that in mind. Somewhere there is a race
Yeah.
to get to national, which is understandable. But even if you don't get to a national law university, it's not it's not the end of the world. There's like a whole lot of things that can be done, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, great. So about CLAT though, let's come back to CLAT. Uh, where do you see, how do you see CLAT evolving over time? Like, what are the real needs for reforming the CLAT? Because I think that is we must have ask your opinion on that. Where do you see the students preparing? Do you think it's doing a good job of selecting the right candidates?
Okay. Honestly, in one word, the answer would be no. I don't see that CLAT really does a very good job of selecting the best candidates. Who are preparing for law. The reason being, it is still a lot more memory oriented. The examination it still promotes rote learning. A lot of questions are still asked from static GK. A lot of random questions are still asked. A lot of questions are still asked from legal knowledge. And these legal knowledge or current legal knowledge questions are such that you cannot really expect a 12th pass student who hasn't really prepared separately for these kind of questions. You can't expect these students to be able to answer these questions. uh, I think it should be ideally, if in my opinion, it should have a lot more logical reasoning. The composition of logical reasoning should definitely increase. The composition of GK should definitely decrease, because GK is something which I'm sure even you would agree with me that the kind of GK that we study for entrance examinations, and then see, obviously general knowledge is required in life. But the kind of GK that we study here and the kind of GK that is really required in life, the kind of knowledge that is really required is right. There's a big gap in this. So this is here. It's just rote learning. It's just highest in the world and sobriquets and superlatives in first in India, first in the world. It's that this is the last point where students would be studying these, and it won't be required anywhere, directly or indirectly. So ideally, CLAT should be reformed in such a way that the weightage is much more on mathematics and logical reasoning and critical thinking of students. Even English, the weightage should increase. I'm sure that students from vernacular medium and students from medium of other than English, they might not agree on this. But even if a lot of students are able to crack CLAT, if suppose it becomes Hindi medium now, students are able to crack CLAT. A lot of them might face difficulties later on, in case they don't decide to practice back home. That might be an exception. But that doesn't really happen. They might think that they'll practice back home, but when they get a good law firm offer, or when they see the lucrative jobs in the big cities, that's where they'll start facing problems. So I think that the weightage of English and logic and maths should really increase, and the weightage of legal aptitude and GK, which surprisingly both of these sections are the largest weightage, legal and GK. Their weightage should decrease. LSAT is another examination. It's
Right.
another law entrance examination. That is, a lot on these lines.
Yeah.
LSAT just has three sections. That is, one is reading comprehension, analytical reasoning, and critical reasoning.
Absolutely.
So, in critical reasoning, it's almost half of the total LSAT paper. So I think that does a much better job of preparing, choosing good candidates as compared to CLAT. And even ALIT, which is another entrance examination. ALIT, even though the pattern is similar, but the quality of questions which are asked and the kind of consistency that you've seen in the paper, ALIT has been on a much better footing as compared to CLAT.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little about AILT. Like, this is the NLU Delhi entrance exam, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so how is it different from CLAT?
AILT is All India Law Entrance Test. It's a test for just entry into one national school, that is NLU Delhi. Delhi has been pretty adamant right from the very beginning that they will have their own entrance. It has never joined CLAT. And it has 5 sections, and the 4 sections except mathematics, all 4 of them are of the same composition, that is 35 marks. So 35 into 4, that is 140, and then 10 marks it's for mathematics. But the best part about AILT has been that the quality of questions of pretty much all the sections, especially of sections like legal aptitude and sections like section like GK, the quality of questions has been such that they'll genuinely test. They'll only be able to select good students, genuinely good students. So the GK questions which are asked are not fairly straightforward. These are the questions who only the students who read newspaper every day, only they'll be able to answer. The quality of legal reasoning questions is such that it's not they're not copied from the previous year's papers, and which will give unfair advantage to a few students. So these are new legal reasoning questions. In fact, this year the legal reasoning questions, the facts were almost as big as a reading comprehension passage itself, which promotes the importance of English also.
Yes.
So NLU Delhi has been pretty straightforward with the kind of students that they require in their college, and then they've made sure that their paper is in sync with the kind of students that they require. So that's where and it has been consistent. So consistent won't mean predictable. There's a difference between both. But consistent means that at least a student can would know that from where to prepare, how to prepare for it, which has still not been the case for CLAT.
Right. If you're not consistent, it raises the question as to whether you know what you're doing year after year.
Yeah.
Why are you changing it every time if something it's not
Exactly.
working? And we
That's
have
what.
law school teachers complaining that CLAT is not really working because they're not getting the right students, and they compare the students that was pre-CLAT and post-CLAT and complain that there is a decline. So,
Yeah.
in your opinion, why do you think that why shouldn't there be age bar in CLAT? What is the situation now, and what is it going to be in the future, in your opinion?
I think age bar, the issue around age bar and the discussion around age bar has mostly been much ado about nothing. Because even when the age bar was removed a couple of years ago, that is from 2017 itself,
Right.
there hasn't been a significant jump in the number of CLAT aspirants specifically due to this. The jump has been the same what we had been seeing year on year.
Right.
And even when I look at my students, I just get not more than 1% students who are from whose age is over 20 years of age.
Right.
But generally speaking, there should be an age bar. The It might not be 20. We can always debate that should it be 20 or 21 or 22. But someone who with an age of say 27 or 28, if you're allowing him in a good national university, he'll obviously be a misfit for that kind of a place, and he'll be stuck there for a good 5 years. Now, because there was no age bar, he was able to crack the exam, and because he had a good background, he got an edge over others, so he was able to crack the exam. But he'll obviously be a misfit for that place. So there should be an age bar. It might not be 20, it might be 21 or 22. But again, the discussion around age bar, it has not really come to anything. Even after the removal of age bar, people were thinking that the number of aspirants will increase drastically. So that has not happened,
Right.
because
Currently,
anyone over,
is there an age bar currently at all?
there's no age bar now. There's no age bar now, but it's still not finally decided by the Supreme Court. It was temporarily removed last year, and that temporary has been till now also. We still haven't got the notification of CLAT 2019, but there was no age bar in 2018 and no age bar in 2017 in any of the examinations. So hopefully, if in case they decide to put an age bar now, but the current status quo is that there is no age bar.
Sure. Okay. So what is, how, like we have got a few questions. Actually, there's a lot of comments, but there's only one question so far. And the
Okay.
question is, actually, there are two questions. One is, how do I start preparing for CLAT? Asked by Gaurav Agarwal. And there's another
Okay.
question that I want to take. There's very few, like not a lot of time left actually. There's another question on how to prepare for CLAT PG. So if you can throw some light on this.
Okay. Firstly, regarding CLAT PG, I'd like to apologize that I have absolutely no idea about that examination. So yeah, so I just know the very basics of that examination, but I'll be very honest, I don't even know the paper pattern of that, because I've never prepared anyone for that. So apologies to that guy who asked this question. But
Sohail,
yeah, but the second question, that how to start preparing for CLAT now. So as I said, take a couple of mocks right in the beginning. Don't be scared of taking the first few mocks. Take a couple of mocks, see where you stand, check out, and take not just don't take one mock. In the first mock, you make a lot of basic mistakes, which keeps you away from truly analyzing yourself. But if you take 2 to 3 mocks, this way you will be able to clearly analyze where do you stand right now, and which section is the weakest section, and start with that section. And parallelly, just as I said, I've been repeating this a lot, but this is very important. Parallelly, make sure that you devote a lot of time studying English and mathematics. These are the 2 sections that always create the maximum difference to any aspirant's score. So spend a lot of time studying English and maths. Don't study more than 3 subjects in a day. I'll give a few specific advices now. Don't study less than 2 subjects in a day, and not more than 3. So 2 to 3 is an ideal number. If you're studying a heavy subject, then 2 is fine. Say if you're studying mathematics and logical reasoning in one day itself, so 2 subjects a day is fine. But otherwise, 3 is much more than enough. If you try studying 5 subjects every day, so this will mean you are just not devoting more than 1 to 1.5 hours to each subject. So which might not be enough for each subject. Mathematics, you won't really go anywhere in an hour. After an hour, you really start understanding what this topic is all about. So you need to practice a lot, which takes time. So don't study more than 2 to 3 subjects in a day. In the first half of the day, if you're a dropper, in the first half of the day, study the subjects where you need to memorize. So that's obviously GK and legal knowledge and vocabulary-based questions. And in the second half of the day, when you're tired due to your coaching studies, and when you're generally tired from the whole day's work, that is when you can study mathematics and logical reasoning. So practice-oriented should be in the second half, and memory-oriented should be in the first half. Parallelly, take a lot of mocks. Don't wait till the very end to start taking mocks. Don't think that I'll only start taking mocks once I'm done with my whole course. I've covered the whole course, because that situation or that condition never arises. ऐसा कभी भी नहीं होता that you've covered the whole course. And students normally, they wait till January or February to start taking mocks. And when they start taking mocks, they understand that is a very different ballgame. So to master the mocks also, you need a lot of time. Yeah. So it's like, studying cricket, theoretically, just watching Tendulkar playing cricket and reading books on that, and then actually going to the playground, to the ground, and then playing cricket. So you need both of these parallelly. So same thing applies to taking of mocks also. So this is a good time to start taking mocks. I'm talking about August and September. So you should ideally start taking mocks right now. But take few mocks right now and more mocks towards the end. Right now, a couple of mocks a month would be more than enough. Analyze your mocks. Just taking a mock is never enough. because you've just tested yourself, but you're not improved anywhere. You're not learned anything. So analyze your mocks. Once you're done with your mocks, just check out your sectional timing, check out your sectional score, see where you gave extra timing, or where you need to give more time. Go back home and study the questions again, the wrong questions and the skipped questions and the missed questions. There are, on pretty much all the platforms, there are 4 kind of questions. There's correct, incorrect, skipped, and missed. So keep the correct questions aside. A few of these might be flukes, but that's fine. But focus on the incorrect, skipped, and missed questions. Okay. In case of mathematics and logical, solve these questions back home.
Based on what you're saying, when I started practicing, in my year, what I did is that I got around 20 years of past year's papers, and I just gave all the, I did not start studying. I just solved all the 20 past year's papers as much as I could. Then I found the answers from somewhere and checked if how much am I getting right. And then I analyzed the papers as to what are the things I know, what are the things I don't know. And I began with the things. Then I realized, after I did that, it was clear to me that what I need to do to prepare after that. And it was a much clearer idea. I had a very clear idea as to what I need to work on. And, it just happens. If you give a lot of past year's papers or mock tests, whatever works, just make sure they're realistic mock tests. Once you just do a lot of past year's papers, the idea becomes very clear as to what needs to be done.
Exactly.
We are towards the end of our discussion. Okay. I think you have given a great place to people to start from. If you can tell, those who are your students and even others, how can they prepare themselves from law school? I mean, they are going to study law one way or the other, I believe, even if not in national law universities. It's fine to study in government law colleges and all the other law colleges. Whatever they do, how do they prepare them? Because it is, somehow people make the mistake of thinking that CLAT is like the achievement of life, which it absolutely is not. So we know, and once you go to the law college, it's like a whole new ball game, a new world. So how is there something that they can do to prepare themselves for the world of law school eventually?
See, I think there would be a few points here. The first is obviously, be proactive. There are a few mistakes that a lot of time I tell to my students also, that I have few mistakes which I did back in my law school life also. And a lot of mistakes that I've seen my juniors doing, my seniors doing. And a lot of things that they did right also. So number one would be proactive in a law school. Participate in a lot of competitions, be a part of a lot of sales, participate everywhere, even if you're not able to, win anything, or just participate. My advice to the first year would be that to participate in as much as possible. I got a fantastic advice from a senior of mine back in law school. His advice was कि law school में सब कुछ करने का time है और कुछ भी करने का time नहीं है. So it's basically up to you कि you want to fall in which category. You might fall in a category कुछ भी करने का time नहीं है because there's a lot of studies to do. There's a lot of studies to do. मेरे पास कुछ और करने का time नहीं है. But if you want to do something, you can do everything. You'll find a lot of your batchmates participating everywhere. So number one is be proactive. Number two, focus a lot on your oratory skills. I'm giving specific advices. So focus a lot on your oratory skills.
We need to wrap up a little. So if you can just tell us in bullet points.
So second would be oratory skills. The reason being, that's required everywhere. That's required whatever you do after your 5 years, and that's required during your 5 years also. Right from the very beginning, go out of your comfort zone and focus on not only oratory skills. That's number two. Number three, don't be a lot, placement oriented at least for the first 3 years. That's just a herd mentality. First year में से ही placement के दिमाग में बहुत ज़्यादा चलने लगता है. And then they start interning in law firms right from the first year. So the first few years should be, it should be for exploring a lot of opportunities and then really trying to understand yourself. Are you fit for a law firm? Are you fit for litigation? Are you fit for judiciary? Or you're not fit for any of these? So the first few years, it's for exploring these things. So don't, follow the herd and don't be fixated on, getting a placement right from the first year itself. कि मुझे कैसे भी करके placement 4th, 5th year तक कर चाहिए. Even if you get serious by the 3rd year, and even if you get a clear direction by the 3rd year, that'll be fine. So just focus on these points. I think that should be enough.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much, Harsh, for joining us and sharing your insights today with everybody. And those who watched us till the end, please join us on LawSikho channel. subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button as well as the bell icon, so that we keep doing these videos all the time, and a lot of interesting speakers come and share about the legal career and the legal industry. So I'm sure you'll benefit. Definitely subscribe and stay in touch. And thank you very much. Good night and goodbye.
Thank you so much, Ramaraj. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Good night.